Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamer Dad channel. Today I have a discussion video that I'm going to title Dear Ubisoft. Maybe I'm going to title it Dear Ubisoft Part 1 because this is probably going to go on for a few series because there's a lot that we need to talk about as to what's going on. Now, I'm not oblivious to the fact that with the entire medical issues that we've had in the past 2 years, that many video game development publishers and their studios and their developers and their logistics have really suffered. In some case, you can say that they've kind of experienced some difficulty, and in other sense, you can say they've actually been checked by reality. Because if you actually think about it, a lot of really weird games were starting to surface before we started to hear of everything regarding mandates and different procedures of lockdowns in different cities across the world. And I think it really has provided a reality check for a lot of the decision makers that put these developers through all this stress to make games that gamers don't really want. I mean, that's just basically the reality. You know, imagine making a game because your boss says you should, and because somebody gave an idea that everybody so far in the top brass liked, yet you, the developer, who probably has the ear of the gamer, or who actually you're a gamer, you can sense in your heart of hearts that this game is really going to suck. But you sit there and you diligently do the work and you put your best into it in many cases because you know it's your work, and even though it's something that you may not necessarily be in tune with, you know that at least maybe your work will shine and perhaps it will come out to be something that gamers adopt, only for you to have been proven right when the game comes out and gamers don't adopt it. Instead, the entirety of the internet throws the dump on it because, you know, people didn't like the game and people didn't ask for the game. I feel like this is the time where Ubisoft as a publisher needs to go back and reflect on exactly what it is that made it a formidable video game developer and publisher in the sight of many people in the world. You see, your growth as a big company, Ubi, is not going to last forever. You see, when you grow so big and when you grow so, in a sense, methodologically, because of the things you've done correctly, I think it's very, very important that you adopt those same strategies and not start to do some really weird crap that you think is going to make you grow. At the heart of everything, gaming is very different. I think the fun side of gaming is what really made the video game world become this really huge, formidable part of the software industry. It's not necessarily the fact that you could make games that could be monetizable. It's the fact that the games were fun. Just because another company made a game that was monetizable doesn't mean the game wasn't fun. The first premise is the game was first fun, then the publishers and the developers were able to make it monetizable. GTA 5, I'm speaking to you. You've basically made a lot of these publishers and even some of these development studios lose their minds because of how much money you've made. But the truth is, you were first a fun series before you became a highly, highly profitable series. So to Ubisoft, to the decision makers, I say revert to the things that make gaming fun. NFTs, they have no place in video games. If you think young people are going to adopt this stuff, you have no idea what's coming to you. Sure, they're playing Fortnite right now, but their demographics doesn't necessarily have that desire for deep game experiences, but they will grow up. They will basically change their taste in video games. And at that time, you better have titles to serve them, or somebody else is going to have those titles and take them away from you. Again, this is something that many people that are out here in the community have been saying for the longest time. I think right now there's a revolution in gaming that's coming very soon. We just haven't seen it. Why? Because enough people within the industry have not gotten fed up yet. Very soon they will. And when I say this, I mean it from the part of those people who have been in video game industry for the longest time, who don't necessarily agree with this, and for the meantime don't have the means to go out there and start out their own studios and start their own development, are probably just sitting on the sidelines looking at what's going on, and eventually they'll start to make moves. It's these moves, exactly the moves, that's going to basically benefit players that we need to start seeing around the industry, and I'm certain that gamers are going to start supporting them. And to the small studios, to the indie developers, to the small and new publishers, you got to wait your turn. It doesn't grow overnight. This whole gaming thing is not going to happen tomorrow. I get it. You may see the successes of all these big, studios and big developers, But you got to understand that Ubisoft has been grinding since the, I don't know what, the 90s. They've been on this whole path for a very, very long time. Rockstar, all of these other big, companies that you see right now, they've got at least a few decades on deck before they were able to actually make anything memorable of themselves. So you have to do your own grinding for at least a decade and at least try to hang in there. And if it's not sustainable, then you just call it, unsustainable, or you do what is actually what you're capable of, or you start from somewhere and do or make games that you can actually sustain before you start to get a good limelight and potentially sponsorship or at least potentially sales for you to be able to get there. It's not easy. I tried to learn game development, and I can tell you, you guys, I don't want your job. Game development is absolutely insane. And the job that I do, many people don't want it. The people who know me and know my work don't want my work in many cases. And I don't want game developers' work. And so you can see how challenging that it is in reality when you kind of factor all of that in. So dear Ubisoft, I understand you want to earn that bag. You want to make money. It feels like all of the millions of dollars that you and your investors are spending on these single player experiences or these experiences that are fun don't have the potential to be profitable, but that's not true. Whoever is making those forecasts and whoever is making these decisions, they're not necessarily in the point where they have the ears of the gamers. In fact, let me teach you guys something. Since y'all don't seem like you're learning, hear this one. You see, your other competitor, EA, once said that they thought that players did not want single-player experiences. They said this in context of a Star Wars game. Everybody remember that, right? Raise your hand if you remember when EA closed down Visceral Studio and said, well, we closed down this studio and we pulled this Star Wars game because it was a single Star Wars experience, blah, 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 blah. And then deep down inside, hidden, in some corner, the same EA was also sponsoring another of their studios to make a single-player Star Wars game. The single-player Star Wars game eventually came out and became a success. Isn't that crazy? I mean, if you kind of think about it, the studio said one thing and then did the exact opposite and were successful at doing the exact opposite. So I suggest Ubisoft that you follow the tradition of video game development and publishing. Now, yes, I get it. Ubisoft is also publishing and actually developing these same experiences. It's just that the development is taking time. All the logistics are still all over the place, so it doesn't feel like many of them are coming forth. Like Avatar, potentially the Star Wars game, maybe even another Assassin's Creed game. Oh, Lord help Assassin's Creed fans. They're about to faint with the new things we've been hearing about some eternal Assassin's Creed game that you can just keep playing for on and on and on. Whoa, I know, right? Many people were saying, oh, Valhalla was too big, man. You're about to complain more than you thought you could if this particular project is not reverted back into the little weird spot that it crawled out from. But, again, gamers have been saying this for the longest time. And I strongly believe that these companies may be losing sight of what it is that really did help them grow. And I think if they don't revert back to that, they're going to lose out on a lot of potential and somebody else will come in. Now, in regard to The Division and The Division 2, I get it. This game is a niche game. As much as we Division audience members may think that this game is the best thing since peanut butter and bread, it's still a very niche game. I mean, if it wasn't really a niche game, people wouldn't be playing Destiny and ignore The Division or playing other games. It's a game that really does appeal to a very specific player archetype, or at least a set of player archetypes. But nonetheless, it's a player archetype that was able to sell you about 40 million copies within the entire ecosystem. Are you going to honor those 40 million players? Or are you going to basically ignore them because you think some of these other projects are going to be profitable? And if at any rate, you're actually trying to make a game to even, serve this 40 million people, why haven't you told us about it? What's going on? You think we're not good enough to be able to handle the information? Well, maybe we may be a big, huge project to handle with our heavy demands and whatever. But I think it's still appropriate that you do right by your communities, especially in this space. Thank you very much, Ubisoft, for reading or listening. I'll talk to you guys later, maybe in a part 2 or whatever the heck it is. Peace out.